Moving to a new home is supposed to be an exciting chapter. New beginnings, fresh spaces, and a sense of comfort. But what happens when that home doesn't want you there? When every shadow lingers a little too long, every whisper feels too close, and the air itself seems to hum with something unseen. Tonight, we bring you real stories from people who moved into houses with dark secrets, places that refuse to be called home. Turn off the lights, sit back, and listen closely, because some houses are never truly empty.
The house that felt wrong. A true story from India. When my family decided to move from a big metropolitan city to a quiet town in India, we thought it would be a fresh start. My father wanted a peaceful life, away from the noise and stress of city living. So we started looking for a house to rent. It didn't take long for my father to find what seemed like a great deal, a 2-story house, spacious and beautiful, at an unbelievably low price. He was thrilled. It had 2 bedrooms, a massive kitchen, a dining room, and a huge living room, the biggest room in the house. The second floor was occupied by the landlord, but they lived in another city. The entire first floor was ours. The rent was too cheap, but my father didn't question it. He assumed that rent was lower in smaller cities and signed the lease without hesitation. That was the first mistake. I was only visiting for the holidays since I worked in Bangalore. I had come to help them move and planned to return in 2 weeks. My sister, who was still in school, was staying with my parents, so the second bedroom was hers. When we moved in, my parents took the master bedroom, and my sister and I were given the second room. The moment we stepped inside, we both felt it. Something was off. The room had tall, old iron cupboards, the kind so big we couldn't reach the top. But what bothered us the most was the floor. Right in the center of the room, there was a dark burn mark, a perfectly round blackened tile, as if something had been set on fire there. We asked our parents about it, but they brushed it off, saying, "You both watch too many horror movies," so we ignored it. That was the second mistake. At first, life in the new house seemed normal. We were busy unpacking, adjusting to the new place. Small things started happening, but we ignored them. Objects were not where we left them. Furniture shifted slightly overnight. Doors that were shut tight were slightly open in the morning. But we always assumed it was one of us moving things around. Then, one night, everything changed. It was a hot night, so I decided to sleep in the dining room where it was cooler. My sister slept alone in our room. In the middle of the night, I woke up to a scream, a horrible, blood-curdling scream. I ran to our room. My mom rushed in too. My sister was sobbing and trembling as she pointed to the corner of the room. "There's someone in the room," she cried, unable to stop shaking. But when we looked, there was nothing. We told her she must have had a bad dream. That was the third mistake. A few days later, my friends came to visit. One of them, who never believed in ghosts, stopped cold the moment she stepped into our room. She froze, her face drained of color. "I don't know why," she whispered, "but something's wrong with this room." I laughed it off, but deep down, I felt a knot form in my stomach. We also started noticing that our neighbors were avoiding us. One day, I stopped by a small shop nearby. The shopkeeper asked where I lived. When I told him, his smile vanished. He turned pale. "You moved in, even after knowing about that place," he said, almost in a whisper. A chill ran down my spine. I asked him what he meant, but he just shook his head. He wouldn't say another word. When I shared the story with some of my other friends, they didn't believe me at all. Instead, they laughed and teased us, saying we probably had our own Samara from The Ring haunting the house. They thought it was hilarious, but behind my nervous chuckle, I couldn't shake the feeling in my gut. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. One evening, I was alone in the kitchen when I heard a faint whisper call my name. It sounded like my mom. Confused, I paused. Maybe she'd come home early, but that didn't make sense. She always left at dawn and returned late at night because of work. Still, I stepped out to check the living room. No one was there. I shook it off and went back to the kitchen, trying not to overthink it. And then I heard it again. A whisper. My name. I checked again. Still nothing. The third time, it wasn't a whisper. It was clear. Loud enough to stop me in my tracks. My mother's voice, calling my name. But she wasn't home. A cold wave of fear swept over me. My hands were trembling. I grabbed my things and ran out of the house, sitting on the porch until my sister returned. I never told my parents about it, but I knew something was deeply wrong with that house. Our parents never believed our stories. Dad was out of the city most of the time for work, and Mom refused to acknowledge anything unusual. Whenever we mentioned the strange events, the whispers, the shifting objects, my sister's terrifying sightings, she brushed it all off. "You're just imagining things," she'd say. "It's all in your heads." But we knew what we saw, what we heard, what we felt. Months passed. I returned to work, and my sister moved in with me for her studies. Then, one night, I got a call from Mom. She was shaking, crying. Her voice cracked as she said, "We're leaving the house today." I asked why. She hesitated, then whispered, "Last night I woke up, but I couldn't move." I felt something heavy on my chest. Her breathing grew shallow. And then I saw her. A girl, sitting on my chest, pale face inches from mine. Long dark hair spilling over her face, strands brushing against my skin. Her expression, pure rage, and in her hand, a knife. She leaned in, her voice ice cold, and said, "Get out of my house, or else." Then she vanished. Shaken and terrified, my mom couldn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, she went to the small shop nearby and finally asked the shopkeeper the question we'd all been too scared to ask. What's the history of that house? What he told her sent chills down her spine. He revealed that the previous tenants had practiced black magic in the house. That strange, burnt mark in the center of our room, it was from their rituals. And the top of the cupboards, once filled with mysterious stains and odd smells, had been used to store materials for their ceremonies. Desperate for wealth, the tenants had made deals with forces no one should ever bargain with. They tried to summon something, but something went terribly wrong. Some say they unleashed a force not of this world, something that never left. Others whisper that their greed cost them more than they ever imagined. And now, a sinister presence lingers there, claiming anyone who dares to stay. The shopkeeper also told my mom that our landlord once had 3 dogs. Each one died under mysterious circumstances. Neighbors said the dogs refused to enter certain rooms, barking and growling at things no one could see, until they suddenly stopped. After the tenants left, the house sat empty for years. No one would touch it. And now, my parents finally understood why the rent had been so impossibly low. That very same day, they packed up everything and left the house forever. And to this day, no one lives there for long. The girl still waits. What would you have done? If you were in our shoes, would you have left earlier? Would you have ignored the signs like we did? Or would you have stayed, convincing yourself it was all just in your head? Let us know what you think, and remember, sometimes a cheap house isn't worth the price you pay.
The house that wouldn't let us stay. I still remember the night that changed everything. It was about 5 or 6 months before the lockdown began. Right around the time I lost my job at the apartment next door. I'd been working there as a nanny, taking care of a 6-month-old baby. The family was lovely. young, full of life, and excited to start their new chapter. They had just moved into the building, bringing with them a sense of energy and warmth. Alongside the couple lived the husband's elderly parents and their adorable little boy. The apartment itself was beautiful, spacious, bright, full of sunlight in the mornings and cozy warmth by evening. For the first few weeks, everything seemed perfect, almost too perfect. Laughter filled the rooms, and the baby's giggles echoed down the hallways like little bursts of joy dancing through the air. The parents were warm and welcoming. The grandparents doted on their grandson with quiet joy, and I had grown deeply attached to the little one. It felt like a peaceful home, a place where happiness lived and sunlight poured into every corner like a blessing. But beneath all that light, something was waiting, and none of us saw it coming. It started subtly, little things, easy to dismiss, moments we chalked up to forgetfulness or imagination. The mother-in-law, a strong, no-nonsense woman in her 60s, began to mention it first. She would pause mid-sentence, glance behind her, and say, "I feel like someone's watching me." We laughed it off. We all did. But then came the noises, strange sounds in the dead of night, soft whispers echoing from empty rooms, footsteps, slow and deliberate, pacing back and forth in the hallway, utensils clattering in the kitchen, always just after midnight, though nothing ever seemed out of place. At first, it felt like the house was playing tricks on us, but deep down, something didn't feel right. One evening, the family had to step out for an event, leaving me alone with the baby. I wasn't scared, not at first. I had been in that house for over a month, and nothing had ever happened to me directly. Besides, the baby was sleeping peacefully in his crib, wrapped in a blanket, breathing soft and steady. I was sitting nearby when I heard it. A slow, deliberate creak. My heart skipped. I turned my head sharply toward the sound. The bedroom door. The same door I had shut securely just minutes earlier was now slightly ajar. A cold wave swept over me. I shivered, but convinced myself it was just the wind. I walked over and locked the door again, brushing off the unease. But just as I turned to step back, I heard it. A whisper, faint, right behind me. My blood turned to ice. I spun around, but the room was empty. Then the baby stirred. A soft whimper escaped his lips. I rushed to him, scooping him into my arms, trying to steady my hands. They were trembling. So was I. Then the temperature in the room dropped. Suddenly, sharply, I could see my breath in the air, like it was the dead of winter. That's when it happened. A loud bang echoed from the kitchen. My heart jumped. The baby whimpered in my arms as I clutched him tighter and stepped out of the bedroom, one hesitant foot at a time. I peeked into the kitchen. The entire spice rack had crashed to the floor. Glass bottles shattered, powders spilled across the tiles, and the cabinet doors, they were flying open and slamming shut, over and over, like something was inside. Furious, terrified, I ran back into the bedroom and locked the door behind me. I clutched the baby tightly, whispering prayers under my breath, trying to steady my heart, trying to pretend everything was fine. I waited like that, frozen, listening, hoping, praying for the family to return. That night, I didn't say a word to them. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just tired. That's what I told myself. But deep inside, I knew something was wrong with that house. Then, one night, everything changed. I was jolted awake by a piercing scream. The baby started crying. I threw off my blanket and ran out of my room, heart pounding, feet barely touching the ground. The hallway light was dim, flickering slightly, and that's when I saw her, the mother-in-law, sitting on the floor, her body twisted into an unnatural posture, limbs stiff, head bent low, long hair veiling her face. She was trembling, and then she started laughing, low, raspy, a sound that didn't belong to her. It wasn't her voice. It was deep, guttural, like a man speaking through her, something dark, twisted. She slowly lifted her head and her eyes. Oh God, her eyes. They looked hollow, lifeless, filled with something that wasn't human. When she spoke again, the words sent a cold shiver down my spine. This is my house. Leave. I don't let anyone stay here for more than 2 months. The family stood frozen. The father rushed forward, trying to shake her, calling her name, desperately trying to bring her back. But she turned and shoved him so hard, he stumbled and hit the wall. The couple clung to each other, pale with terror. The baby screamed from the bedroom, and I just stood there, too scared to breathe. We somehow made it through that night. None of us slept. We just waited for daylight. The next morning, the family made their decision. They were leaving. They had no choice. The mother-in-law's health was deteriorating fast. She barely recognized anyone. And the strange occurrences, they were only getting worse. Before they left, the couple pulled me aside. The mother looked me in the eye, her voice low and urgent. Please, don't ever recommend this house to anyone. Not for rent, not for anything. No one should live here. Later, we found out something that made my blood run cold. No one had ever completed a 6-month lease in that apartment. Every single tenant before them had left within 2 months, just like the spirit said. Some whispered that the place was haunted by a woman and her husband who had died there years ago under unusual circumstances. No one knew the full story. No one wanted to. But after what I had seen, what I had felt, I didn't need to hear any more. Even now, when I walk past that building, I can't help but feel a shiver crawl down my spine. It looks ordinary, quiet, but I know the truth. I know what I saw, what I felt. Some things in this world go beyond reason, beyond science. And some places, they refuse to let the living stay. So the next time you move into a new house and something doesn't feel right, trust that feeling. Some doors should never be opened.
Now we know, not every house is a home, and some never wanted to be. If these stories gave you chills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who thinks they're brave enough to move into an old house. Have you ever experienced something strange after moving? A place that didn't feel right? Tell us your story in the comments if you dare. This is Chills and Whisper, and some stories never leave you.